Heading overseas now to the escalating tensions in the Middle East after Israel carried out a series of deadly strikes in Gaza this weekend. Iran vowing revenge for those attacks and for the recent killings of several militant leaders. Ellison Barber is on the ground in Tel Aviv for us tonight with the very latest, and we do want to warn you, some of the images you're about to see are disturbing.
Major strikes inside Gaza this weekend, leading Iran to reiterate plans to, quote, punish Israel. In a phone call with the Vatican this morning, Iran's new president told the Holy See's Secretary of State that Iran would like to avoid wars, according to a readout in Iranian state media. But he also said Iran has the right to respond, given the deaths of women and children in Gaza and the alleged Israeli assassination of Ismail Haniyeh during a visit to Tehran. Israel vowing to respond to any attacks from Iran or Hezbollah with unprecedented action. Our enemies are threatening to harm us in ways they have not harmed us before, says Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. I hope they do the math well. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin rushing firepower to the region, deploying a guided missile submarine, the USS Georgia, and ordering the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group to get there faster. In central Gaza, a father brought to his knees by grief, cradling the body of his 7-year-old son. Oh my God, he sobs. Why us? 3 of his children, ages 7, 4, and 1, killed in an Israeli airstrike Friday night. The next morning, an even deadlier strike on a school-turned-shelter in Gaza City. 3 rockets struck the Tabin school, killing at least 100 people, according to a spokesperson with Gaza's civil defense. A lot of bodies that cannot be identified, he says. It is very difficult for the medical team, even the civilians, to identify them. We are in front of a disaster. Israel admits they carried out the strikes, but say the school was more than just a shelter for thousands of displaced Palestinians. In a statement, Israeli forces said in part they struck terrorists operating at a Hamas command and control center embedded inside a mosque in the school's compound, and that they killed roughly 20 militants using 3 precise munitions. A political advisor to Iran's supreme leader accused Israel of trying to ignite a regional war and said Iran has taken necessary measures to impose the harshest punishment on Israel. The White House saying the strikes underscore the urgency of a ceasefire and hostage deal.
Mr. President, what's your message to Iran? Any thoughts from the president?
For the families of more than 100 hostages abducted on October 7th and still trying to hold on to hope, Iran's threats don't change much.
I don't know, there was some water in our safe room, but we're not really, I don't think, overthinking what will be. Who knows what will be? We're in the midst of a very unique, ambiguous trauma. It's pretty hard to get us more rattled.
I'm sure that there are political and military leaders who are doing the right things to prep for it. As parents of a hostage, we've got other big things in our mind right now.
In an interview last week, the parents of Hirsch Goldberg Poland told NBC News that hugging their only son at home is top of the list.
300 plus days in, it is very obvious, although 7 people were rescued, but 7 out of 251, it's very clear that the 105 who came out at the end of November came out because of diplomatic negotiations, and we need that to happen again.
And Ellison Barber joins us now from Tel Aviv. Ellison, powerful reporting. We're learning more tonight about a hostage that Hamas says has been killed. What more do we know there?
Yeah, so a spokesperson for Hamas's military wing released a statement on their official Telegram channel saying there were two separate incidents at some point involving soldiers of theirs. They said in one incident, one of their soldiers shot and killed instantly a prisoner. And in another incident, and again, they say this was a separate incident, they say two female prisoners were seriously wounded and are now receiving treatment. A Hamas leader later released a statement saying this, quote, "What happened with the occupation captives in Gaza is a result of the massacres and the assassination operations. The occupation, and they mean Israel, bear direct responsibility for the killing of its prisoners, meaning hostages, inside of Gaza." A spokesperson with the IDF has said so far they do not have any intelligence support that allows them to either confirm or deny what Hamas is claiming here. They say they are aware of the claims on social media. They're working to gather more intelligence, more information. But right now, Morgan, they say they're not able to confirm or deny whether or not two hostages are seriously wounded and one is now dead. Morgan.
Ellison, we heard the U.S. once again call for a ceasefire in your report. So where do the talks stand right now?
Well, currently, they are expected to at least have a gathering Thursday, August 15th. That'll either take place in Doha or Cairo. The United States, Egypt, and Qatar releasing a joint statement last week calling on Hamas and Israel to come together and to make a deal. They say, ask them, rather, to pick up where they'd left off when they had a framework that was agreed upon. This is a framework that was more formalized towards the end of May. That being said, Israel has said they will send representatives to this meeting, either in Doha or Cairo, but Hamas says they will not. So right now, in terms of how does it look for a ceasefire, Morgan, not very good, but there's a lot of diplomatic efforts still going on behind the scenes, trying to see if anything could possibly be pieced back together at this point. Morgan.
And a tough waiting game continues. Ellison Barber, thank you so much. And for more analysis on the rising tensions in the Middle East, I'm joined now by retired United States Army General Barry McCaffrey. General McCaffrey, thanks so much for joining us on Top Story tonight. We want to speak to you about the immediate potential threat here. What do we think Iran's options are for retaliation, and what message would those send?
Well, I think they're in a quandary. They're trying to decide what course of action to take. They have some serious military options. They can attack Israel for an extended period of time, several months, using not only their own assets. 13 April, as an example, they fired 300 some odd drones or missiles at Israel. They can also include Hezbollah, who are alleged to have 150,000 rockets, which could, if over time, could overwhelm Israeli defenses, even though the U.S. has buttressed our own, particularly U.S. naval capability. So everyone's on edge. The provocation of assassinating the head political officer of Hamas in Tehran right after the inauguration of his new president was appalling, in my view, as was probably killing the senior Hezbollah military commander in Lebanon. So the escalation is likely to be severe in the coming days.
Regarding what's happening in Iran, General, we know there are different stakeholders within the Iranian government. You have a more moderate president that some would consider to be more aggressive religious factions kind of playing off each other right now. How does that factor into the country's response here? And bigger question, who do you think is going to win out?
Well, of course, the diplomatic solution is obviously the only way out of this mess. Secretary Blinken, the foreign minister of Jordan, the Egyptians, everyone is trying to get the Iranians to moderate their response. There has to be some response. But it's very difficult to signal political intent using military violence. So if the Iranians, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iraqi militias, if they all unite to attack Israel in the coming days, which seems likely, the outcome could be devastating. CENTCOM, General Eric Kurilla is in Israel right now, coordinating, pulling together all the air defense assets in the region that are friendly to Israel. And that certainly includes the Brits, probably the French, the U.S., the Jordanians, the Israeli IDF forces. But it's hard to pull that off. The architecture of attack on Israel in the coming days could easily result in significant casualties. Then the Israelis will respond, and they have significant air power to have a devastating blow on Iran. Hezbollah is a different question. I don't think the Israelis can deal with Hezbollah except by massive ground combat invasion of southern Lebanon. Last time they did that in 2006, it didn't go very well. So Israel is facing a real dilemma and should expect a massive attack in the coming days.
General McCaffrey, we appreciate your time, and as always, your insight is invaluable. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.